Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
Good party people, this is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to somebody who is a part of one of my favorite initial YouTube channels, NoDQ.com. He has been a host on Afterbuzz TV, as well as hosting one of my favorite YouTube channels. There is Josh Talks right here on YouTube. He is the one and only Josh Tariff.
Hello, Mr. Woods. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for having me on the show. I like a little shout out of Danny Limelight doing the intro at the beginning. Good guy out here from SoCal doing big things now, appearing in the AEW. So a whole nice package to bring me in. I appreciate it.
No worries, man. I mean, I try to raise the level of the show to the level of the guests. And again, you are like pretty that's an echelon that I am still striving to climb. So I'm just saying.
Well, you're wrong, but I appreciate that.
You know what? It's not. I've been married for 15 years, so I am wrong pretty often. Even when I'm right, but that's another story for a day, you know. But dude, I mean, geez, I mean, you've been around the wrestling industry for, I mean, we're talking a decade plus, right? So, I mean,
I recently hit my 15th anniversary in the wrestling business. Yeah,
you're all of like 27 years old. How is that? You Benjamin Button looking mother trucker.
Change the 2 to a 3, and then it's more like it. But well, I mean, it really started. I moved out to California in 2005 for graduate school, and I was writing a column for various wrestling websites. That was like the very first thing that I ever really did. Where how, like you mentioned, NoDQ.com, and they invited me to be a part of their video show. And after an appearance on there, a gentleman whose name is Kent Wilson was trying to start a wrestling promotion out in the City of Industry, and all of a sudden he emailed me saying, like, I saw you on that show. I'm interested in you being my color commentator. And all of a sudden I'm just like, I've been in California for 2 months and I'm booked on my first wrestling show. I made it. But that's really, then I did that show, and that was my first day, officially in the wrestling business. I was there for like 12 hours, helped take a ring out of the truck, set it up, set up all the chairs, meet all the guys, learn the handshake rule, all that, do the show, tear everything down, and and got $20 for my efforts. When it was all said and done, I'm just like, I'm addicted.
That payday is a hell of a deal to some. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
I've had so many people say, like, wait, you got paid on your first show? I'm like, yeah, I guess I did. I had no idea at the time that was a big deal, because I look at them like 20, like, that's it. But everyone's just, you got more than a hot dog and a handshake,
Yeah.
I guess I did. So I started spoiled.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, and I don't know if it's the state of the business and combat sports in general, but like, I mean, and if you're an amateur MMA fighter or boxer, you're getting nothing. You're getting absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. So again, you started like literally like 3,000% better than most MMA fighters and boxers. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky, that was one of those just like right time, right place, right time things. And it gave me my first, my first hit, my first dosage of actually performing in an actual wrestling show. And it was an instant drug, instant addiction in the good way,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, drugs and things of that sort have not been so kind to any people involved in the squared circle.
If you don't use them properly or anything like that, maybe not the best, especially your 70s and 80s. But 2005, just the thrill of performing was the drug. So yes. There you go.
There you go. But obviously, I mean, that wasn't the time. That wasn't when wrestling found you, right? Because I mean,
No,
I'd shudder to think, writing a column for your college paper and project. I mean, but you to have that subject matter and kind of the history behind it, you had to be a fan first.
absolutely. Yeah, my earliest childhood memories. So I was around like 3 or 4 years old. Every Saturday, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts where also my dad's parents lived just on the other side of the town. And every Saturday, me and him would go to his parents' house, and it was like a deal that I had with my grandfather where he would sit and watch the same Popeye the Sailor Man VHS that I would just always want to watch as a little kid because I loved Popeye as a kid. And in return, I would then sit with him and watch wrestling because my grandfather was a wrestling fan. And so, I mean, from age 3 or 4, I started watching these larger than life guys running around, slamming each other, and all the colors and the noise and everything. And the first wrestler that I remembered was Dino Bravo. And I remember the fact that I, as a little kid, hated Dino Bravo. And I just wanted him to get beat up by everybody. So those are like the very earliest memories. And but my grandfather died when I was very young. He actually passed away when I was only about 5 years old. But I still kind of was watching wrestling, and my dad kind of took it on at age 7. My dad brought me to my very first show. We had ringside seats. Main event that night was Hart Foundation versus Demolition for the tag titles. Bret Hart put his shades on my head. And from then on, I'm just like, wrestling is my life. Bret Hart is God. And from age 7, I'm just like, I want to, at age 7, like, I want to be a professional wrestler. Now, as I got older, like, I want to work in wrestling. Wrestler wasn't going to pan out. But it's just like at age 7, it's like, that's when I knew this was my passion.
Now, oh my gosh, that was, and I'm a huge Bret Hart fan. One
Yep.
would even say, Mark, my son's name is Owen. I literally have off the side my Bret Hart Funko Pop, right? So that was the thing. I wanted to be the kid. I wanted to be the kid that Bret basically gave his sunglasses to and whatever.
Here, let me do something for you now. My headset's wireless, so I can walk over to grab it. So I'll keep talking.
Okay.
So at age 7, I was so thrown off by it because there was, like he was the main event and everyone was just in love with him. And this was still when he was a tag team. I'm trying to find one other thing here with it as well. This is so further proof. I know this is great video aspect right now that I'm not even seeing.
Great. It's fantastic. You're a like drawing the curtains is what.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, unfortunately, I can't find the other thing at this moment, but I'll bring over the main course. But so they were like, still before they were pink. It was these are the actual shades that he gave me when I was 7 years old. If you look in the back, definitely that they're 30 years old. You kind of look at it, like the foam stuff.
Yeah,
It's like all deteriorated, but because just over time. And you see like there's some bends and cracks in them because when I was little, I emulated Bret Hart because he was God to me, and I would wear these and wrestle my brother. Not knowing how much of a big deal, like I had these, I would just wear them so they got beat up a little bit. Well, the other thing that I was trying to look for, because I do have it, is the actual card of that show that day in 1990. So further proof that these are legit.
Wow. And was he?
Yeah.
I mean, was he signing? Because that was the caveat of getting the shades. It's not just that, but he had like a personalized inscription, to the fan. So I mean, was that
not at this point?
Really?
So like really at this point, the Hart Foundation like just recently turned babyface. So like he just started doing the shade gimmick. And because when he first started and they were heels, he just wearing sunglasses. But then when they turned faces, he started having the shades to give to fans. And not long after this is when they turned pink. But so these were still the silver ones, and because obviously he's much more known with the pink ones, where they also like how you're right, like how this one in the corner, like it says, Hitman right there. He would have it say that, and he might also have an autograph on like the side of it too, but didn't have that with these. But that was the moment where it's just like, I want to be in wrestling.
Wow, that's great. I love it. I man, that is amazing. Like, and the fact that they predate the pink shades and the autographs. Those are two, like, if you're like an ardent collector, those are two hallmarks that like you look for. And it predates both of those hallmarks, Even like I was gonna ask you about like how many dots did he have in his signature that signified how many children he had at that point, but this predates all of that.
Wouldn't know any of that. Like I've never been one who collects autographs. I mean, like I might have a couple photos with people, but it's not like something that I really, bombard and bug people for, just because I don't know. It's just one of those things where I feel like, I just want to, appreciate them for them just being themselves, like, and feel comfortable around me. And, if it results in us taking a photo, great. If not, whatever, not a big deal. But as a 7-year-old kid, this was just, the holy grail.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's still the holy grail now, because I mean, when you think about how many like people that actually have those still, and especially the fact that you used to wrestle your brother, and they're in impeccable condition considering that little caveat.
Yeah, because my all-time favorite match period is Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, SummerSlam '91. So there was a point when I was young where I had that match memorized, and my brother was Mr. Perfect, and I was Bret Hart, and I would lock him in the show. By the way, to this day, my brother and I still have no idea how he's walking, because I would just practice. When we got a little older, we got a trampoline in the backyard. So, everything that we should not do, we did, with wrestling each other. And it was the point of, my brother being like, hey, I want to try a move. I'm like, no, I need to keep practicing my power bomb. And just I would, my brother's a lot smaller than me. So like I would do the power bomb. Like I would hit him with every move you see on TV. I would do to him either like in our basement or on the trampoline. So how he never got hurt is a mystery to both of us.
Yeah, oof, that's
don't try this at home, kids. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't try that at home at all. BJ Darden, Bad Blood says,
"Oh, Bad Blood, my boy. I go way back with BJ. What's up, man? When all this COVID stuff ends, you need to get me booked up in Portland, dude. You've been talking about that for years. Get me booked up there."
Dude, I might have messaged him same, so I'm just. We might be rival managers in BCW Worldwide. So,
okay.
I mean, that could be a thing. I don't know, but you got to check out BCW Worldwide on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and all of the streaming platforms. They come through every week, and they've had like Marty the Moth and porn stars who like wrestling, because who doesn't like either of each? But I digress.
They're both enjoyable. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, did you have any other favorites? Right, like obviously Bret is a seminal.
Sure. Yeah, so Bret is a staple favorite for the obvious reasons. Shawn Michaels, of course, The Rock, because he was just so entertaining. Chris Jericho, Matt Hardy is one of my all-time favorites as well. And I got to work with him once, which was really, really cool. Cutting a promo against him in a ring was just like childhood me was going nuts. Yeah. So this was like 2014. So this was pre-broken Matt Hardy stuff, but after he left WWE. So this was kind of like Ring of Honor Matt Hardy before, like he had the whole change of persona in Impact. He would be making various indie appearances. And Alpha Omega Wrestling, which is a wrestling promotion that I've worked for since 2013, based out in, right now, 29 Palms, would have been in Indio, all like way down, like near Joshua Tree area in California. So if you're familiar with that, if that helps. Where I now play for years, the owner, or the co-owner, I should say, of Alpha Omega Wrestling. So at this time, I was a heel building a faction to try to take over the company. And Matt Hardy happened to be making a special appearance that day. And the show started with me cutting a promo, inviting him to the ring and telling him, now mind you, this is like 2014. I'm telling him, like, hey, you should join my group because you're clearly, past your prime. But if you align yourself with me, then maybe I can help prolong your career. Where obviously Matt Hardy will not die, get in my face, crowd loving it, da 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 da. And it's just funny to say, like, that was the promo I did then. And since then, he's had a bigger singles career with all the broken gimmick than maybe anything else. So I take a small amount of credit for all his success, being that I think my promo is what motivated him to do it. No.
As well you should. As well you should.
It was definitely, definitely a bucket list thing for me. I was really grateful for that opportunity because just like he is one of my all-time favorites, and not only just like to meet him, and he was very cool and kind, and he gave me a couple pointers afterwards, which is great. But it's like, no, I did like I did something in the ring where it was literally just me and Matt Hardy in the ring together in front of a crowd. It's just like, what world am I in right now? So that was really, really cool.
I wouldn't even stop there in terms of the credit that you would give yourself for Matt Hardy's not just career resurgence, but also his personal resurgence, because around the same time he starts dating what was it? It was what is it? The Lucha show on MTV, and they had a gal named Rebby.
Rebby. So Rebby also, she happened to also perform on that show. So this was before they were married, before they had any of their kids. And she was very kind to me. And she had a match, and she did a great job there too.
So yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm like, I would not just thank you, Josh, for us being a small part of the broken Matt Hardy gimmick because of that promo, but also his resurgence and awesome stuff that he's done with his personal life, because as you stated, he is now married to Rebby. They have 2 wonderful children. He's gone
You got 3 kids.
3. Okay, 3. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just saying, I credit you for that as well, and Matt's sobriety. So
yes. So you're welcome, Matt and Rebby, for everything that I've done for sure. We'll take it. Whatever.
Dang right. Why not? So again, so obviously there had to be a little bit of a like the gap between obviously filming stuff for NoDQ.com and then essentially getting in the ring with Matt Hardy. So like what?
Yeah.
Like, I guess, what part did you, obviously you knew you wanted to be a part of the business when you were, a wee young lad, but then, what happens in between where you're starting to get booked, and how long in between were those 2 events?
So I mean, a few things happened. So that very first event that I worked on was in September 2005. And over the course of my first year, just kind of occasionally getting booked for new places that are starting up. So like new announcer, new commentator. But I was having a number of people actually tell me, now mind you, this is 2005 at the time, but they're saying, you got to stay away from the internet stuff. You got to get off that internet show because we don't take these people as seriously. And we can see that you're different. So it was one of those things where like, all right, so I kind of was weaning myself off of the video show. And mind you, now, like fast forward 15 years later, everyone's aspiring to have their own video shows. Everyone's aspiring to be on these shows, but it's just based on the time. It's just like, no, we look more down on these, but now everyone's, trying to sign to be on, with Chris Van Vliet and Alicia Taut and all of them. But so it's just kind of ironic with it that 15 years later, here I am on your show talking about this. And so, it was kind of weaning off that, and eventually, parted ways with the website. But I mean, I always say, if I wasn't involved on that, I would have never gotten my official start in wrestling. So I always credit them for that. And As time went on, also 2005, not much technology. So if I'm a commentator, we don't have wireless headsets. We don't have this mic setup that you have. We don't have StreamYard on what we're broadcasting
Yeah.
this on right now. So I wasn't really getting booked anywhere because they just didn't have the equipment to do anything. So towards the summer of 2006, so almost a year into the business at this point, I worked a handful of shows, but nothing extravagant. I'm just helping out at a charity show in Pico Rivera, California, because I had some friends that were going to be there and just kind of helping out with some charity event. And it's running late, and the referee has to leave because he has another show that he's actually getting paid for. So all of a sudden, the guy who was running this thing, he looks at me because I'm just there hanging out. He's like, "Can you ref?" I'm like, "Never done it before." He tossed me a ref shirt, and he's like, "You're going to ref these next 2 matches." And I'm terrified because, mind you, I've done like the commentary stuff, but I have never moved around in an actual wrestling ring. Like, I've stayed out of the ring out of like respect. I'm like, I'm not one of the wrestlers. I'm not going to go in there and run the ropes because I'm not trained and they don't know me or da 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 da. So all of a sudden, like, now I'm going in the ring and I gotta act like a ref and do all the things refs do. But the guys that I worked with were super kind and kind of guided me on what I needed to do. And of course, one of them, and I always joke with him, Stepdaddy Roscoe Tucker. I don't know if you know him.
No, not personally.
His real name John Weber.
Oh yes, yeah, John Weber. Okay, yes.
Yeah, Stepdaddy Roscoe. So one of the matches I did was a tag match with him and the redheaded stepchild versus another team that consisted of Fabian Fury and Rico Dynamite.
Wow.
And then this was like summer 2005 ish. So those guys, like Dynamite now, I know is he's a beast.
Yeah.
This he was still a beast then, but not like now. And all of a sudden, like, it's the type of thing where they get distracted. Heels arguing with the ref, blah blah blah, and all of a sudden, Stepdaddy whispers to me in the ring while we're surrounded by kids. He's like, "I'm going to suplex you." I'm like, what? He's like, "Let me suplex you." I'm like, okay. Again, never taken a bump in my life, and my first bump is a suplex from a guy. Now I'm 6'1". Stepdaddy is probably 6'5", 6'6". Like this is a large suplex happening, and he does it, and I hurt my elbow because I don't know what to do, but still to this day, because he's one of my dearest friends in wrestling. I'll just periodically bring him like, "Oh, my elbow still hurts. It's so weird," just to rub it in with him. But apparently I performed well enough that the guy who was running like the charity thing, it's like, "I have a show in 2 weeks. Why don't you come ref for it?"
Wow.
And that began my next 4 to 5 years in wrestling. I was a referee, and I refed for everybody. I refed for the big promotions like PWG, AWS, out here, to like the small starting ones. I was a big staple in Epic Pro Wrestling War, the West Coast Wrestling Company, Battleground Pro Wrestling, Mach 1 Wrestling. So there was a lot of them that I was a part of, that it just kind of fell into lap because, hey, this is a way I can get booked and exposed that I guess I'm decent at reffing. I'll do this in the meantime while I'm waiting to one day hopefully commentate again. And that's what I did then for those like 4 or 5 years. Then technology advanced and eventually kind of transitioned back to commentary, where then that kind of turned to me being a manager, where then we got to this point that we're talking about with Matt Hardy, and it just kind of continued from there.
Oh, I think that's absolutely brilliant. And again, you were way ahead of your time, But speaking of that time period, Alex Ramirez goes, "Josh, I still want my darts rematch from the good old days at the spot. Hashtag the spot." By the way, RIP, hashtag the spot.
Alex, man, it's been a long time since I've seen him. Don't ask me why, but apparently I'm randomly a good dart player. I've never really practiced it, but I always tend to be decent. And there was a place for years called The Spot that a number of us would hang out. And there's a dartboard there, and people always want to play. And I always seem to win. and I couldn't explain it. No reason why. So either they were all just really, really that bad, or I was actually a good dart player. But Alex, I mean, you know, you put your money where your mouth is, and we'll have another game. It's fine.
There you go. There you go. I'm just saying. And Andrew Pacina of SoCal Uncensored has a memory. He said people in SoCal scene didn't like No DQ because the way the people acted on the show. I don't know.
And I kind of know, you know, to what he's saying is because, and this is why people were kind of pulling me aside at the very beginning of it, because they were saying, you know, it's like, you know, they felt that they were, you know, overly marks, and I'm not agreeing with it. I'm not disagreeing with it, because there are some people that I've seen that were far more of marks than what they were doing. I don't know, maybe someone at some point maybe rubbed someone the wrong way and it kind of got passed on. But I mean, there were people that, you know, like I said, they kind of pulled me aside. It's just like, no, you're different. And you're trying to, you know, be like legit in the business. So, you know, this is like their opinion. And it would be one thing if it was just like one person kind of saying, I'm like, oh, maybe, you know, they just rubbed you the wrong way or whatever. But I had a lot of people, you know, say these things. And it's just like, well, I'm trying to, in a way, but also, you know, still want to be good. Because again, as I've said prior, if it wasn't for them, I would have never got my start. So I always have that, you know, respect and I'm grateful for that. So it was just interesting, you know, how it all kind of transpired. But eventually, and it took, you know, a number of years where, you know, there were times where, you know, like fast forward to like, I don't know, 2011, whereas years after I did anything with them, maybe I'm working a show for the first time, I get introduced to someone and like, oh, you're that guy from No DQ. I was like, wow, I haven't been on that in years, but okay. You know, it's just like, you know, something. And, you know, I like to feel that I have a mutual respect around peers in the industry. I've not heard personally of anyone having any type of bad blood with me. No pun intended to Bad Blood, who already chimed in earlier. But you know, it's just part of everyone starts somewhere, and you know, it's just part for the course and just adds to their story.
No, absolutely. Which I mean, I gotta ask, like, do you have any like interesting No DQ stories from that time period?
I mean, the only real story that I would say, if anything, from there was definitely like my very first interview that I did with anyone. It was a day where we interviewed RVD and Sandman. And Sandman was, wait for it, drunk.
What?
I know.
You don't say. That's balderdash, sir.
Like you could probably find, you know, like you know, this clip of, because Sandman had to take several takes to just do, you know, like the plug for the site. But the actual interview itself, because I didn't really know at the time how, like, you know, much of a shoot should I do, or should I, you know, keep it kayfabe, especially with RVD, because at the time that we met him, he was still under WWE contract. He was, I think, taking time out for like a surgery because he was written off by Carlito attacking him at this time. And I remember when we interviewed him, I'm kind of fairly quiet because I'm the new guy, you know, at this point, and I don't want to overstep my grounds. And I remember at the end, I kind of kept the kayfabe. I'm like, yeah, and hopefully we'll see you back in the ring soon so you can get some revenge on Carlito. And I remember RVD was just like, yeah, sure. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, what the hell did I just do? Like, what did I do? By the way, that reminds me of another story. Remind me to go back to that as far as what the hell did I say or do. But then going to Sandman, we're interviewing Sandman outside, and I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember who he was talking about, but he gave some story where he was talking about an interaction that he had with somebody in a locker room, where at one point he's describing the story where then he says like he grabs him by the shirt and like holds him up against the wall. During which, in this interview, he then grabbed me, threw me up against the wall, and all of us, like, we're all just like, this is where Josh is going to die. Like, Sandman is about to drunkenly murder Josh while we're interviewing him. And then he just had me up there for a second and just kind of placed me down. And I nearly just fell over just in fear. And he pretty much like grabbed me and like picked me back. He's like, get up, kid. And afterwards, Sam and an RVD bought us all dinner. So that was it was a very interesting, that was definitely the most interesting experience out of all that. But the story I wanted to go back to was, so my very first show that I did, back to that, me talking about in my head, like, why did I ask someone this question? So the biggest name on this show, the very first show I worked, was Christopher Daniels. And he was one of the few people on this show that I actually heard of. Now, my gimmick for this first show, I was supposed to be kind of like a genius guy. So I'm supposed to find out these random facts about different people. And obviously, the more known of a person, the more things I'm able to find online. So I come across this random website when I'm studying, trying to prepare for this show, that lists like everyone's championship history for like how many titles they held, what titles they were, where they were, when they won them, et cetera, et cetera. And I look up Christopher Daniels on there, and I remember looking at it and being very impressed with the fact that technically, according to this website, I don't remember the name of it, but according to the site, he had more title reigns than Eddie Guerrero and Mick Foley. So I'm like, ooh, this is a good like stat to mention as my character and commentary. Get to the show. Daniels could not be nicer. Just coming up to me, like being kind of introducing himself. I told him my first show. He's like, "This is great," blah blah blah. Like, I couldn't have asked for him to be any nicer. We're going around, like starting to prepare, maybe half hour before showtime, and I'm kind of getting all my notes prepared, and I'm kind of approaching a few different people, just asking for additional information or verifying information that I found. So, dumb old me walks up to Christopher Daniels backstage. I'm like, hey, Chris, can I ask you a question? He's like, sure, buddy. What do you need? Like, what can I do? What can I do to help you out? I'm like, well, according to this site, it said that you won this amount of titles, which is more than Mick Foley and Eddie Guerrero. Is that true? And just the look on his face, so went from, and like he went from like, I don't know, brother. Just if it said it online, just go with it. I don't know. And then he just kind of turned away the lights, and it's just like, and it was like at that moment, that was like my first moment when I realized, like, oh my God, that type of question is not something that one of the guys would ask someone in the back. That's just like some dumb fan type question. I can't do that here. Like I'm now in that field where I should be more prepared and realize, okay, maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but does it matter? And it was a really interesting learning experience for me, just making a fool of myself in front of Christopher Daniels way back. And I still periodically run into him from time to time, and he's still incredibly kind and friendly. He's like, good to see you. How you been? So, nothing but love for him. But I just always remember that moment of like, wow, this was my first real screw up moment.
It happens. It absolutely happens.
But it's learning experience. That's exactly what it is.
Now, Alex Ramirez says, "I love how I love how Josh is always humble and keeps it real. I can learn a few things from Josh."
Thank you, sir. I mean, you can learn from me on the dartboard, but all that's fine.
And what Alex has is what most people commonly diagnose as big dick energy. I've heard from people, and unfortunately, that is not a curable kind of situation to be in. So we are sending Alex Ramirez. Oh, Jesus Christ. I think my fucking dog pulled out my damn... Oh, shit. Oh, fuck. Yes, it's my fucking dog. Oh, Jesus Christ. You fucking asshole. I'm going to jump out. And I should be back. No. Apparently I'm not back. Yeah. Apparently, I'm not back. Am I back? No, nothing. I think my dog just chewed my damn headphones. That's what happened. I can kind of hear you, but I can't kind of hear you. So it's weird. Yeah, we're fucking still live. So fuck it. Let's do it. Now, Andrew Priscina says the problem was the no DQ guys acted like asses at some shows. Oof, oof, ouch, hard in the paint. So go ahead and clarify. We might have to do a round two because it says that Josh's sound isn't working. So yeah, so we're gonna end this feed and then we're gonna come back hopefully. Let's do that. All right, guys. Thanks.